It's dope to build. It's dope to be here. Peace and power. Back in it, man. Y'all came over to the backup channel. I love y'all, man. Appreciate that, man. And yeah, man, keep building over here because we're gonna, just keep stacking it up, stacking up the information, and just having, multiple resources. And again, the website is coming, and I'm super excited, just like the website. So I'm just like the radio show. So all that's coming, for you, and that's what we are, that's the design of what we do, is create a network, create, a vibration, awareness, frequency, just an awareness, and awareness, and awareness. Once you're aware of it, man, once you're aware, nothing can stop you. When you know who you are, nothing can stop you. When you're from the seed and you're from the turf, nothing can stop you. When you stay true and you love your family, nothing can stop you. All right? When you love your brother, all right? Nothing can stop you when you love your brother and you love your sister and they're a wall of protection with you and for you. Nothing can stop you. You are a king. You are a queen. Raise up. Own it. Own your frequency. Own your land. Own your information. This is our information. Anything I drop belongs to you by default because it already belonged to you. I am just making you aware, remembering. I'm remembering with you. So we're digging on it. As you can see, the vibration is super high, man. Been working on some, dope, things, man. Just dope things, man. That's all I'm going to say, man. But the Most High is blessing us, just and continuing to make us feel this way. We should not feel any other way but this. No matter what trials and tribulations, what obstacles, what bullshit, all right? We should not feel nothing else but this, man. This is your vibration. Never let no one snap the legs off of your vibration. You fly. You got wings for a reason. You fly. You keep flying. You go and you reach your goal. You reach your goal and you praise your creator. Wow. Let's get back to it. All right, we're in chapter 29. We're in chapter 29. A dream sees the Exodus. The Hebrews have taken land in South America. From there, the story in Numbers remembers that the Hebrews went to take land from a king called Og, at a city called Edrei, a place called Bashan. I searched day and night for a dream. In Bashan, old maps, new maps, ancient history, modern history, I could find nothing of Bashan or Edrei. And the biblical writer said the Hebrews turned and went up by the way of Bashan. Following the description, up by the way of Bashan, I looked up against the sides of the mountains on the New Orleans map. Remember, he found that map in New Orleans, man. So, for his Butler Hustler, he got copies of it. Love to the store owner that gave him those copies. Because, with that information, it's helped water, the roots that we're searching for. I mean, seeing that Egypt, that he found a map with Egypt in South America, literally Egypt. You know what I mean? So, he broke it down, It's a beautiful thing. Let's go. He said, I come too far to lose the trail now, night after night. I pushed my sight over every inch of the eastern side of the South American continent, but I could not find where the Hebrews had gone. 3 weeks after following the Exodus to the banks of the Jobok River, I was still camped there. Then, on a Sunday morning, I dreamed. How many of y'all are dreaming? You know what I'm saying? I mean, me personally, man, I'm trying to eat right and do all these things so I can have vivid dreams, so I can remember my dreams, all these kind of things. So, dream again, dare to dream. There had been no dreams that I could remember for a long time. I mean, how many of y'all feel like that? You used to remember dreams, now you don't? When I woke from the dream and rose from the bed, I was trembling with chills. I couldn't get warm. The dream seemed to show that I was looking on the wrong side. I put on the thickest coat I had and began considering the sides that the Hebrew passages had moved the Hebrews to. What was it that had sides to it that the dream was referring to? My chattering teeth and trembling lips barely got the words out. I considered the Amazon River, but the water did not fit what the dream had seemed to show. What did the dream? It's the Jordan. It's the Jordan. I'm looking on the wrong side of Jordan. The biblical narrative had said people in the Exodus went up to Bashan. So remember the Jordan, he connected to Jordan, what, to the Atlantic? So the biblical narrative had said people in the Exodus went up to Bashan through the Atlantic Ocean. Through the Atlantic Ocean flowed the strong equatorial current called the Jordan, which ran down to South America. So going up to Bashan would take the people of the Exodus to where the equatorial current, the Jordan, was coming from. In the dreams, I was walking toward the sunrise to go up the Jordan toward the sunrise would take the people of the Exodus to the west coast of Africa. I pulled open the map of Western Africa, traced my fingers up the equatorial current, and there they were, the biblical cities of Edrei and Bashan. All right, we're just surfing away. Let's go. Modern maps called the two places Ibri and Grand Basan. Grand Basan. The names were printed against the shore of the country, now being called the Ivory Coast. Most scholars explain that the name Ivory Coast referred to the ivory tusk of the elephants. There was a much more significant meaning to that name that had nothing to do with ivory mask or ivory tusk. I returned to the scriptures. All right. A lot of these scholars always go back to the scriptures. There's babies in the bathwater, and they're getting most of their archaeological dig. And, Divine Prospect broke this down a while back, on our radio show, with this whole Minority Report, different things like that. So, we're getting babies out of that. Babies. All right, get the babies. So the Hebrews, so he said he returned to the scripture and tested the two West Africa places against the biblical narratives. The Hebrews had reached West Africa. Finally, I could follow the people of the Exodus again. All right, so I began reading at a passage in Numbers, and they turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, went out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And the Lord said unto Moses, Fear him not, for I have delivered him into thy hand, and all his people and his land, and thou shalt do to him as thou didst unto Sihon, king of Amorites, which dwelt in Heshbon. So they smote him and his sons and all his people, until there was none left him alive, and they possessed his land. And the children of Israel set forth and pitched in the plains of Moab on the side of Jordan by Jericho. Remember, Jordan is the Atlantic. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was sore afraid of the people, because they were many, and Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. Aren't they still distressed about the children of Israel? They still want you to be asleep. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, Now shall this company lick up all that are round about us, as the ox licketh up the grass of the field. And Balak the son of Zippor was king of the Moabites at that time. He sent messengers therefore unto Balaam the son of Beor to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. That was Numbers 21:33 through chapter 22, verse 5. Now, the Hebrews had sent their warriors up the equatorial current and had defeated the king called Og in West Africa at Edrei and Bashan. After that victory, the Hebrew army set forward, traveling forward with the water of the equatorial current, and returned to their settlements in South America. That understanding seems so simple and obvious, but before the dream unraveled it, the biblical transatlantic passage was fenced with blinding difficulty. Eventually, I perceived the thing that had veiled the route of the Exodus, where the Hebrews crossed the sea. I had noticed that biblical narrative used the phrase passed over when a body of water was crossed. And he rose up that night and took his wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. Genesis 32:22. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river, and set his face forward the Mount Gilead. Genesis 33:21. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 bands. Genesis 32:10. Even when the water had split or dammed dry, the phrase passed over would still appear. Here's another quote. And the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan, and all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over Jordan. Joshua 3:17. At other times, the passed over phrase was the only hint that water had been forded. And he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times. Bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. Genesis 33:3. And thou shalt write upon them all the words of this law when thou art passed over, that thou mayest go in unto the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, a land that floweth with milk and honey, as Hawa of thy fathers hath promised thee. Deuteronomy 27:3. Let's try to stay away from all those lords and lords, because, I ain't trying to throw curses out there, and, these lords or anybody, so you have a primitive root. We flow with our primitive root. Curiously, however, when the Hebrews moved across the Atlantic Sea into West Africa into Ibri, the passed over phrase is not used in the text. In fact, there was nothing in those biblical accounts that seemed to show that the Hebrews had crossed water to reach Ibri. Not only had they crossed water, they had crossed the Atlantic Sea, yet nothing in the text revealed the sea. When the Hebrews left the east coast of South America and went across the Atlantic into Africa, the biblical writer or the latter interpreter did not use the phrase passed over, but wrote, and they turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, went out against them, he and all his people, to the battle of Edrei. Numbers 21:33. Then we turned and went up to the way of Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And spelling Edrei, E-D-R-E-I, for all those researchers. So Deuteronomy 3:1. The biblical passages that veil the movement of the Hebrews on their return from Africa by again refusing to allow us to know that a sea was crossed. Here's Numbers 22. And the children of Israel set forth and pitched the plains of Moab on the side Jordan by Jericho. Numbers 22:1. And they departed from the mountains of Abarim and pitched in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. Numbers 33:48. The dream unlocked the movement of the Hebrews into West Africa. The discovery of famed Jericho was only a glance away. According to the biblical passages, after returning to South America, the Hebrews camped in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. The biblical accounts in the New Orleans map had already made it clear that the land of Moab was on the side of the Amazon River. South America, all right? Now, this is the lot. This is the land, according to Horace Butler's research, and, we're digging on it. We're surfing the wave for sure. So this was the land, that the Most High gave to Lot, Abraham's, Abraham's son, right? So, this was the blessing that the Most High really promised to Abraham. This is really Abraham's blessing, that his seed, would be, numerous and all that. So he gave them a lot because he said, look, I said Abraham's going to have a numerous seed, right? Stars, outnumber the sand of the sea, all that stuff. So, that was their lot based on Abraham's blessing. But did they just want that? Did they just want, cities of gold, Estebanico, right? I remember South America. I might have been born here, right? They were given a lot there. Let's go. By stating that Jericho was in Moab, all right, by Jordan. Let's go. Pulling the New Orleans map before me, I pressed my fingertip. Hold up. I'm skipping ahead here. Let me go back. I don't want to miss nothing out of this, man. All right. The biblical accounts in the New Orleans map had already made it clear that the land of Moab was on the south side of the Amazon River. Now the Bible was placing Jericho in the same area on the same side of the Amazon River. By stating that Jericho was in Moab and by Jordan, the biblical narratives have provided a tremendous clue to locating the site of ancient Jericho. Look out. Pulling the New Orleans map before me, I pressed my fingertip against the place where the Amazon River meets the Atlantic Ocean. I traced my finger southward through the Moabite side of the Amazon, passing extremely small, finely printed names on the map. In less than a minute, Jericho was found. On the New Orleans map, Jericho is shown on the Atlantic shore of Brazil. Let's meditate on that. mean, you've been told everything, to the, opposite. You know what I'm saying? Everything that we're getting is opposite of everything we've ever been taught. I mean, I said a long time ago, they say this, you have to at least go the other way by default. A lot of us are not willing to separate from the information downloaded into you. There's triggers, They say, well, why would they lie? Why would they do this? Why? Because when you're unnatural, everything has to be twisted for you to exist. You have to twist it, because if it's in nature, then it coils. It has a rhythm that you'll never be. You'll never survive in it. You know what I'm saying? If it's a different world for these people, then they have to formulate a world that they can exist in. They can spray it up. They can chemtrail it up. They can go crazy. They can terraform it. They can bio. Biopolitics, biometric it up. RFID it up. Artificial intelligence it up. CERN it up. Ionosphere it up. I mean, all of this has to do with an opposition to nature, an opposition to you. Why do I do it? Because I'm not in opposition to my people. And those that, are from where we from and seen what we seen and had to go through what we had to go through, man, just to be free. Freedom ain't no joke. Freedom ain't no joke. Freedom ain't nothing to play with. But freedom has to be real. Freedom has to be real. And when you're ready for freedom, then you take your freedom. When you're ready for freedom, freedom is yours. It's not really even a slow process. When you're ready for freedom, it's just a decision. It's just an alarm clock. It's time to be natural again. It's time to stand up for nature. You see your trees fighting. You see your mountains fighting. That all this is a part of your natural cipher, and we're all trying to get the building blocks, man, to speak that language again. We see our plants singing and speaking Japanese and doing all kind of stuff. We're just trying to get the language going, which is music, which is vibration. That's what we're getting. So all of what we're getting, all this information, all of what we read, in the Sefer and everything else, all of what we call Hebrew. This is a pretty dope joint. I got it when I was like, man, I'm about to learn Hebrew tonight. And I saw this cat, really like, using it to build, especially with our root words, but this is the comprehensive etymological dictionary of the Hebrew language. All right. It was sent through a Carta, Jerusalem. And this is Ernest Klein's joint. Get the babies out, but it's a pretty good start. If you want to get a good reference point, I just play around with it. But all of this is vibration. All of it is frequency, man. So that's all we're getting to. The language itself is frequency, man. And I think Ebonics was the best thing that happened to us, to tell you the truth, because when you speak proper English, then you're speaking proper forked, and you're speaking a proper spell, and you're more into the spell. Broken English is good because you're breaking spells. I think something in us, even in the depths of our sleep, we yearn to break these spells. We yearn to, break free of the spells of these, loops, getting out the loop, get more into our flow again. That's that purity. That's that moving water, man. That's that clarity. A lot of us are seeing it for the first time. You see it, and then you just start dashing. You start running so fast to it. It's so unbelievable. The feeling is so good. You share it with your family. A lot of them shut you down. You say, damn, man, I thought I had a gang of friends, man, but no one wants to hear this shit. You know what I'm saying? And, it's a blessing, man, because, I got, old homies and people like that, man. I tried to, rap with before, but they get some drop now. They come over, man. They're like, all right, man, I'm ready to kind of dig on this and that. And it's so dope because we really know so little, so we need all the help we can get from each other, man. And focusing on our unity, focusing on those things that we are united with is the best. It's always the best. It's always the highest frequency. It's always the dopest thing. You know what I mean? So let's go. Pulling the New Orleans map before me, I press my fingertip against the place where the Amazon River meets the Atlantic Ocean. I trace my finger southward through the Moabite side of the Amazon. All right, Moabite's got a side of the Amazon. Let's go. Moabite side of the Amazon, passing extremely small, finely printed names on a map. In less than 1 minute, Jericho was found. On the New Orleans map, Jericho was shown on the Atlantic shore of Brazil in the large district that appears to be named for Pharaoh Miriamon Pianki. All right, pause it. Read it. Read it. All right, get that, man. We supporting you, Horace Butler. We supporting you, man. See? Everybody buy this book, real talk, because you're going to want this great recon and research. He got all his, sites and, sources and all that kind of stuff. And he's a great researcher. He's a great researcher. He did great work. So you just want to get that so you can, dig on it and agree to disagree or agree full out. You can agree 100%. You can agree 5%. You know what I'm saying? That's the point of dropping it. When I drop something, I'm not dropping it for everyone to say, oh, 100% this or 0% this. But if it's 5%, then I urge you and I ask you to focus on the 5% that we agree on. Because that 5%, might unlock other things. You know what I'm saying? Some people, man, they might agree with 95%, but disagree with 5%, and that's all they can focus on. We'll focus on the 95%. You know what I'm saying? Because you got something there. That's something that you can build with. You know what I mean? I got people from all different walks. They're in different religions. They're doing different things, man. I got homies that, own strip clubs, and they still my homies. I love them, and, I ain't judging no part of whatever the case is, man. The thing is that when they come and, when my folks, holler at me and it's all good, I know the vibration is real, and that's what we agree on. And those other things we can build, and who knows, man. So it's all good. I ain't better than nobody by any level. You know what I'm saying? And it's just real cool, man, to, again, stay in your lane. Be in your lane. Keep going and flowing, and don't let no one knock you out of that. You have one. The creator created a design for you. That's your lane. Dig on it. Build it up. And invite those that are worthy to flow in that lane with you. You know what I'm saying? Y'all been flowing in this lane, and I love y'all for that. And I'm flowing in your lane, man. So when we bring all our lanes together, man, we got a super highway. We got a super duper highway. But we have our own lanes by design. So know your lane. Build yourself up. You know what I'm saying? Do what feels good. That's really what I mean. Know your lane is like, what feels good? What part of this creation feels good? What part of this Hawa, this existence, feels good? If it's reading, read. If it's drawing, draw. If it's writing, write. We need it all. We need all the creativity of Hawa. We need all the establishment. We need all the lanes to come together to be a super duper highway of love, of frequency, of flow, of water. A water highway. You know what I'm saying? Just the flow, man. We're just talking energy. Because when we talk energy, we're talking the truth. When we talk the drop, we're talking clarity. And that's what we're fighting for. Let's get a quick dismount. This is just a quick drop. Just wanted to do a little quick one, man, and just let you know that I'm here for you. And yeah, thank you for checking me out on this backup channel. And that's cool. We can get cozy. I told y'all, man. So it's just, this is to my peoples, man. This is the Drop Nation. Let's go. Now, Jericho was found. Now, on the New Orleans map, Jericho is shown on the Atlantic shore of Brazil in the large district that appears to be named Pharaoh Miriamon Pianki. The map gave Jericho the surname Acora, A-C-O-A-R-A, Acora. The famed Jericho on countless Sunday sermons was found. Oh, Jericho, 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 Brazil. What side of Brazil? I traced my fingers southward through the Moabite side of the Amazon. South, right? He said the south of the Amazon. He said the Bible was placing Jericho in the same area on the south side of the Amazon River. Nigga! That's crazy. All right. And then he found the map showing it in the name A-C-O-A-R-A, Acora. The famed Jericho on countless Sunday sermons was found. One theologian suggested that biblical names on a map of South America could mean that the place on the map was simply named in remembrance. That's what they say, right? It's like Utah, like, the Mormons are just, naming this stuff to remember something. I mean, that's easy to say, to say blase, impossible. These are just, yeah, sure, these things happen, but let's go. That's why you got to separate all the dots. And what he meant was that names of biblical places in South America could have been named in remembrance of real places named in the scripture. I had to smile at that comment. Not ironically, ancient and antique maps do not show the names of these biblical places in the land now being called the Middle East. So he said, yeah, okay. Well, if they were doing this in remembrance to the real thing, then how come the real thing ain't on this $1,000 map? Nigga, come on. I mean, that's what, So when you go back, just like we have that reality simulation, Hyborian, whatever, everything they're calling Egypt ain't in Africa. It is over and in South America. Ophir, Timbuktu, Punt, right on top of South America. Zimbabwe, Iranistan is connected to South America. Persia, man. Here, man. All right. Whew. Some bullshit, man. Feel you, dog. Feel you. Let's go. You see, we friends now. You see, we work through our little differences. Clearly, we cool. You know what I mean? We cool. He's letting us rock. We cool, right? Right, Drop Nation? We cool with Horace Butler, right? He's letting us rock, man. It's all good. He's cool. We cool. That's how you make peace, man. Let's go. So what he meant was that the names of biblical places in South America could have been named in remembrance of real places named in the scripture. I had to smile at that comment. Not ironically, ancient and antique maps do not show the names of these biblical places in the land now being called the Middle East. But ancient and antique maps do show the biblical names in South America. In fact, it was the absence of maps showing the biblical places that caused archaeologists to pour into the Middle East to begin digging to try to find where cities had been. How strange it was that ancient maps showed the biblical names in South America. Man, how strange it was that ancient maps showed the biblical names in South America, the motherland. And remember, South America is actually North America. Flip it, let go. While ancient maps did not show these names in the other place. Remember his chapter. What was it, chapter 5? Let's go back. I mean, we belly flop, so we got some going back to do. But I just kind of opened it up, and I wanted to hit it right there. Let y'all know this ain't no play. Remember his chapter? Chapter 5, Jerusalem is missing. When he went into the work of Dr. Margaret Steiner, in an article called It's Not There. Here's a portion of that courageous announcement as it appeared in the July-August 1998 issue of the Biblical Archaeology Review. Here's the quote from Dr. Margaret Steiner, from the Biblical Archaeology Review. The history of Jerusalem is going to have to be rewritten. As we gradually assimilate the archaeological record, we are finding more and more evidence that calls into question long-held assumptions about the city's past. This is especially true of the three periods I will discuss. The history of these periods is particularly sensitive in that it ultimately involves the historicity of the glorious reigns of David, who was Prester John, and Solomon, who was priest king, Prester John, at least according to the Bible, and the existence of the united monarchy of Israel. Failure to publish the evidence from the large excavations conducted in Jerusalem since 1960. So they've been digging over there. They've been digging over there in 1960, but they ain't dug on it, man. Has created severe problems for scholars who wish to evaluate the Jerusalem of these periods. The directors of all 4 major excavations died without writing final reports. So everyone who was digging on this stuff, because they were digging on the truth that Jerusalem wasn't over there, somehow they all died before even writing final reports. Not one final report from these excavations has been completed, although teams of archaeologists are now working on them in Jerusalem, Manchester, England, and Leiden, the Netherlands. The history of Jerusalem in the late Bronze and Iron Age is usually based on an analysis of written sources, the Bible, and some archaeological texts and documents such as the 14th century BC Amarna letters from Egypt. Archaeological materials from Jerusalem itself are then used to clarify and confirm this picture. However, I shall proceed here from the opposite direction, starting with the archaeological evidence from the site. Most of the late Bronze Age material recovered from Jerusalem has come from tombs, especially one on the Mount of Olives that contained hundreds of pots, mainly of local ware, and from a pit south of the city, which held some pottery and a scarab. North of the old city, the remains of what may have been an Egypt temple were also excavated, but no remains of a town, let alone city, have ever been found. Not a trace of an encircling wall, no gate, no houses, not a single piece of architecture. Simply nothing has been found in the Middle East pertaining to Jerusalem, South America, North America, Kalalus. Your promised land is here. No prayer I could have put together would have been bold enough to ask for what I had just seen. In the same magazine that announced Steiner's missing Jerusalem report, another archaeologist attempted to remove the great significance from Steiner's historic revelation. He argued that the ancient letters found in Egypt and written from the Egyptian king of Jerusalem to the Egyptian Pharaoh prove Jerusalem existed in an important city even before David built his great monumental city. To strengthen his argument against the discovery that Jerusalem was missing, he then listed several other famed biblical cities whose ruins did not show a city. Some scholars reason that the Egyptian letters discussing Jerusalem before the time of David made it indisputable that Jerusalem existed north of Africa during the time of David and Solomon. To those scholars, no matter what the archaeological proof showed, Jerusalem absolutely had to be on that hill in the Middle East. Their reasoning seemed sound, but it was wrong. Their reasoning failed to consider that Jerusalem did exist during that time, but at a different place. According to ancient historians, Jerusalem was one of the largest, richest cities in the ancient world, especially during the time of David and Solomon. One of the greatest cities built in the earth was entirely missing in the dirt, and scholars were pointing to pieces of a pot as proof Jerusalem had been on that hill. Failure to consider that the ancient Jerusalem was at a different place than the hill now going by that name. The scholars entrapped themselves in establishing erroneously an entire biblical landscape around a hill where ancient Jerusalem was entirely missing. Man, that's the Horace Butler, man. Keeping it real, keeping it trill. Let's finish this chapter out. But antique and ancient maps show that those biblical names in South America. In fact, it was the absence of maps showing the biblical places that caused archaeologists to pour into the Middle East to begin digging to try to find where the cities have been. How strange it was that ancient maps showed the biblical names in South America, while ancient maps did not show those names in the other place. I also knew that scholars and archaeologists were having an awful time trying to find the biblical cities in the Middle East. In fact, frustration over the last 200 years of searching had grown so troublesome that many of the scholars were proclaiming that the Old Testament is a myth because they could not find the route of the Exodus or signs in the dirt that the Old Testament had actually occurred, with no good sea to place the famed fishing village Capernaum on. They had stood up stones on a waterless place and said an earthquake must have swallowed the sea, and that scriptures placed Peter's city on. Imagine the difficulty in attempting to recreate seaside fishing villages and cities along the Atlantic Sea on the barren, dry, waterless land in the interior of the Sinai Peninsula. Their frustrations was self-induced. I did not share it. I wouldn't have noticed Jericho if I hadn't understood the biblical passage that about crossing the Atlantic. The ocean crossing biblical key was in hand. The key explained that what scriptures in Joshua mean when they state the Reubenites and Gadites have received their inheritance which Moses gave them beyond Jordan eastward, beyond the Atlantic Ocean eastward. Joshua 13:8. The tribes called Gad and Reuben settled and claimed land in West Africa on the eastern side of the Atlantic Ocean. Near the end of the Joshua account, the writer moves other Hebrew tribes back onto the western side of the Atlantic where they plant city-states that united and became known as Israel, together with 2.5 tribes in West Africa. Now we know we have a lot of family that was taken from here to West Africa in the so-called transatlantic situation. We know that they found us here, enslaved us on our own land. We know that Columbus brought a Hebrew interpreter, Louis Torres, who was a convert, who spoke Hebrew specifically to try to meet with the Grand Khan, Prester John, to try to meet with the Grand Khan, to try to meet with the Israelite king. He brought a Hebrew interpreter to meet with the Israelite king. It's a whole nother story. And you have to let that go and paint it for yourself. Because within yourself is the truth. DNA contains a lot of memory. You can back up the entire internet, all the hardware of the entire World Wide Web on what, less than 1%? 1% of your DNA? That's how much storage you have. That's how much memory you have. That's how much crystals store. You're a crystal. You store. Your trees store. We store information. It comes out. This is remembering. It's coming out. So a lot of our family in West Africa are from right here. Straight up, from right here. Together with 2.5 tribes in West Africa. Because the Gad and Reubenite nations were so far from the other nations called Israel, the Western African nations were given their own holy temple to worship sacred occasions in. That is why the 2 calves were set up in the place that scriptures call Dan. The Dan people of West Africa are still known by that name. It would be years before I would comprehend the full length of land in the Americas that was called Israel. Finding the city called Jezreel was key to that understanding. Still, the name of the Exodus was now known. The route of the Exodus was now known. The Exodus began in the Patan region of the Yucatan Peninsula. All right, so let's break down this Exodus. According to Horace Butler. Still, the route of the Exodus was now known. All right, let's go. Let's surf this wave. So he's saying that the Exodus began in the Peten region, P-E-T-E-N, of the Yucatan Peninsula. All right, where Moses had fled to from Egypt's Thebes. The Exodus moved through Central America, and then it followed the coast of South America to Venezuela. The Hebrews approached Guyana for passage, but were denied. From Kadesh in Venezuela, the Exodus pressed southward and entered the poisonous forest in South America. After a troubled journey, the people reached Brazil's Atlantic shore. From Brazil, the Hebrews' exodus became a military invasion. That's what he's saying. All right. Joshua, all right, military invasion of cities in the Americas and West Africa. Remember the Moabites and they hate Joshua, man. To them Joshua invaded them as Canaanites, or invaded them as Jebusites, or invaded them as Ammonites or Moabites. Joshua's invading us. Well, you have a lot. But now we see maps in Atlantis and everything from northwest of Mexim, northeast of Mexim, southwest, southeast of Mexim. Everything is a Mexim and Atlantis and Morocco. And you're like, did the priest king have that same vision? Does the creator have that same vision of how y'all dividing the lands between Ham and Cush and Ham and Cush? More's on Mars, right? More's on Mars. And if you're claiming Mars, you can't claim my Earth. You don't get Mars and Earth. If Moors are from Mars, then they're from Mars. I'm from Earth. I'm banging the Earth. You can't invade the Earth and then say, you're invading us. You're from Mars. How's it an invasion? I mean, what? What do you want, man? All right, so it's this universal celestial hijack of it's all ours. Underneath the barrier is all ours. Yeah, we exist above the barrier, and above the barrier carries the flow, carries the vibration, including what's below the barrier. And we have a promised land, and we have our land, and we have our earth, and we have our elements, fire, water, air, and land, and it's us. It's Adam. We are Adam. Here. Copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. Y'all want to go through that migration again? Because I think that was pretty clutch. And, let's just dig on it. Still, the route of the Exodus was now known. The Exodus began in the Petén region of the Yucatan Peninsula. Let me just show it to you so you can read it yourself. All right. Go slow. Get that. All right. Just a little bit more for you. We're finishing the chapter right now. All right. Hopefully you can pause and get all that. So let's get it. Still, the route of the Exodus was now known. The Exodus began in the Petén region of the Yucatan Peninsula, where Moses had fled to, but from Egypt's Thebes. So from Egypt's Thebes, which Egypt is here, so Thebes must be here. So Moses, they're saying, started in the Yucatan Peninsula. So we're talking Mexica, Mexico, Moses, Mexica, Mosek, Mexica, Meshesh, Mazaka, that's all Moses. Mexico is Moses. Meshi, Moses. Moshe, Meshi. Yucatan Peninsula, where Moses had fled to. From Egypt's Thebes, the Exodus moved through Central America. Then it followed the coast of South America to Venezuela. The Hebrews approached Guyana, or remember Sinai, for passage, but were denied from Kadesh in Venezuela. The Exodus pressed southward and entered the poisonous forests of South America. Remember the land of no return? And after a troubled journey, the people reached Brazil's Atlantic shore. From Brazil, the Hebrews' Exodus became a military invasion of cities in the Americas and West Africa. Invasion, Joshua, conqueror, right? Reconquering his lands. Aztec, right? From the time I comprehended the root of the Exodus, more than a year would pass before I would perceive an astounding thing. Passages in the Bible actually confirm the Exodus moved southward out of Egypt, not northward as modern historians claim. Two passages in Numbers come together to show that the Exodus moved southward out of Egypt. All right, here's Numbers 2 and 25. The standard of the camp of Dan shall be on the north side by their enemies. All they that were numbered in the camp of Dan were 100,050 and 7,600. They shall go hindmost with their standards. The Dan people were placed in the most northward position during the march of the Exodus. This northward placement of the Dan tribe was also the hindmost position during the long march. When the hindmost or rear of the migrating group is at the north end of that group, then the front of the group must be at the south end, which means the group is heading southward. Bang! Well done. That's perception, man. Well done. All right. So if Dan was in the hind, and then I'll read the scripture again. Numbers 2:25. The standard of the camp of Dan shall be on the north side by their enemies. So they're being placed in the north. And the point he's saying is they're in the north, and the next scripture is about to say that they are, the hindmost. They're at the rear of this particular migration. If they're at the rear and they're being placed up at the north, then the camp must be moving south for them to be at the rear and at the north. If they were moving north, then the camp of Dan would be at the southmost position. You know what I'm saying? Instead, they said they were placed on the north side by their enemies. Numbers 2:25 and Numbers 2:31 says, all they that were numbered in the camp of Dan were 100,050 and 7,600. They shall go hindmost with their standards. The Dan people were placed in the most northward position during the march of the Exodus. This northward placement of the Dan tribe was also the hindmost position during the long marches. When the hindmost or rear of the migrating group is at the north end of the group, then the front of the group must be at the south end, which means the group is headed southward. I do not know how this clear biblical declaration of a southward moving Exodus escaped the perception of the scholars. It is impossible to reach the land now claiming to be ancient Israel by moving southward out of Egypt and northeast Africa. Bang! So if Jerusalem's over there, if Egypt's over there, and they're having a southward exodus, then how are they going to reach Israel by heading south? They must go north, right? So it lets you know that they're moving southward, out of where they're starting, which he's saying they're starting in the Yucatan. Again, he said they're starting in the Yucatan, in Mexico, moving through Central America, following the coast of South America to Venezuela. Then they approach Guyana or Mount Sinai, Seir, for passage. They were denied from Kadesh in Venezuela. The Exodus pressed southward and entered the poisonous forests of South America. And after a troubled journey, the people reached Brazil's Atlantic shore. Remember the Moabite camp, set up over there in the south side of the Atlantic. All right, and you got the Atlantic shore, Brazil. From Brazil, the Hebrews' Exodus became, he's calling an invasion again of cities in the Americas and West Africa. So from that point, he's saying that they're invaded into the Americas or West Africa. So we know that we have this whole, what they're calling this anasazi, this enemy of my enemy situation. We got the four corners playing, So, is he saying that, they migrated south through Mexico, but they started around the Four Corner region? Which way we're saying? Because if we're talking Egypt, we're talking Grand Canyon. And if they're exiting out of Egypt, we're just going to flow. Well, let me finish this right quick, then I'll flow for the dismount. It is impossible to reach the land now claiming to be ancient Israel by moving southward out of Egypt and northeast Africa. A dream had shown these things, but how could a dream have known this? And then the next one, we're getting into chapter 30, the Hyksos and their king Saul, all right? And we will be going back to get some more babies out. Love to Horace Butler. Thank you for not taking any more of our videos down, my bro. and let us build. You know what I'm saying? Fair use, Copyright Act, Section 107, 106, fair use. Just using this for informational, teaching, criticism, comments. You know what I'm saying? And all that. All right, and scholarship, all that, and yeah, so we're placing Egypt, Grand Canyon, right? All spread all throughout Illinois. You got Memphis, Tennessee, you know, all that stuff like that. So Moses must have fled, you know, with this peeps, you know what I'm saying? At that time, maybe from that. I'm building with you. Now you got the four corners. Now he regroups. He said he fled to the Yucatan Peninsula, so he fled into Mexico. All right. Remember your Anasazi situation as well, you know, however the timelines play. And then you got Tenochtitlan, all right, getting set up, you know, what, around 1300s or so. Now you got Quetzalcoatl playing, and if Quetzalcoatl is Joshua, according to some documents that we dug up, then you can pretty much put that timeline around what they're saying the Quetzalcoatl situation is, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, other names like, you know, what's going on. So, I mean, is this, how ancient is this? You know what I'm saying? What really went down? So he's fleeing from these four corners into Mexico, into Central America, you know, South America, south of the Atlantic, all right? And then, you know, from there, he's saying West Africa plays and, you know, other things, you know what I mean? So these are just, you know, one man's research here. We're researching with this researcher, not against this researcher. And we appreciate Horace Butler, man, and, you know, for all the great work he's done. And that's real talk. He's done amazing work with there, you know, right there. So we can all hope to add, just like he's added to the equation, you know, bit by bit. This doesn't have to be the all and be all, but it's a great start and a great buy. So again, buy the book. And we can only add. I can only add to it. I can't give you everything, but I can add to it. You can only add to it. You know what I'm saying? And together we can have a beautiful thing. So thank you again for subscribing and checking out the backup channel here. It's not really a backup channel. I mean, it's just a little groovy place for us to keep building, to have you know, be multifaceted. And yeah, you know, the vision is real. The journey is real. You've been on this journey with me for over a year now. You know what I mean? And you can see it for yourself. You can go back to video 1, you know what I'm saying, and surf the wave. And I'll always be proud of it. You know what I'm saying? Even when we go 1,000 into our own framework and we drop the drop right on 432thedrop.com and our other frameworks, you know what I'm saying? We'll always have this as a body of work for you to surf the wave, even if it's 5 years from now. If that's the case, if this thing is still popping by that time, next year, whatever the case is, next month, you'll always have an opportunity to surf the wave with us from day one, right here. So we love y'all, and yeah, man, expect greatness, expect good things. You know, thank you for having a wonderful Shabbat. I felt you. Thank you for all the energy that you sent me, and the great love. And you know, hey, we here for each other. All right, so I love y'all. Stay up, suit up, choose up. We'll be back, man. Back in the corner, man. Back in the corner. I love y'all, man. Keep dropping it for me.